Good morning, students. In the last class, we discussed about the concept of deadlock, the conditions which cause for deadlock, and also we discussed about how to represent resource allocation states to a process. So basically, as we discussed, deadlock is the situation where none of the process will be able to continue its execution. So in today's class, I'm planning to take up the topic deadlock detection. So here we are going to learn how to detect the deadlock. So actually for deadlock detection, we have an algorithm which is commonly known as deadlock detection algorithm. Students, here what we will do is first we'll discuss with an example. Then after that, we'll go through the algorithmic steps. Once you are able to understand the example, then it will be very easy to understand the algorithmic steps. Okay, just look at this example. Here we are given with some matrices. Okay, and these matrices, actually this particular method of representing resource allocation state, we call it as matrix model. So for representing a resource allocation state, we have two methods. One is graph model, and the second model is referred to as matrix model. So in case of matrix model, we use two important matrices. One is called as allocated resources, and second matrix, it is used for representing the requested resources. The first matrix, it gives information about the resources which are allocated to the different processes, and the second matrix, it gives information about the processes which have requested for additional resources to complete their execution. Okay. Okay, first look at the matrix one, which we call it as allocated resources matrix. So in this matrix, here at the top, the column headings we have given as R1, R2, R3. This indicates that we have three classes of resources: resource 1, resource 2, and resource 3 class. But in each resource class, again, number of resources may be different. Okay, R1 is a resource class, but that resource class might be having many number of resources. Say, for example, printers is one class of resource. You might be having 10 printers connected to the same system. It is possible. Okay. That's why here, remember, R1, R2, R3, they indicate the resource classes. And here we have written P1, P2, P3, P4. These are the processes. Okay, if you look at the first matrix, it indicates that the process P1 is allocated with two resources of R1 class, one resource of R2 class, and here we have written 0. That indicates that none of the resource of type R3 is allocated to P1. Similarly for P2, if you look at, we have one R1 class resource, three R2 type resources, and one R3 type resources. Similarly for P3, if you look at, so it has got one R2 and one R3 class type of resource. Here P4 is allocated with one R1 resource, two R2 type, and two R3 type resources. Okay. So this first matrix, it gives information about the processes and allocated resources. Then we have the second matrix, which is used to represent information about the resources which are requested by the processes. So actually, these are like additional resources which are required to complete execution of these processes. So again, if you look at this matrix, here again the column headings are R1, R2, R3, and here we have rows P1, P2, P3, and P4. So in this case, if you consider this particular example, it indicates that the process P1, it requires two R1 type, one R2 type, and three R3 type resources for completing its execution. In the first matrix, the information is about already allocated resources. But in the second matrix, we have information about the additional resources which are required to complete execution of say P1, P2, P3, and P4. So for P2, if you look at, we require one resource of R1 type, four resources of R2 type, and zero number of R3 type resources. But if you look at P3, this indicates that P3 does not require any resources for completing its execution. Already P3 is allocated with some resources, but for further execution, it won't require any additional resources. And P4, it requires one R1 type, zero R2 type, and two R3 type resources. Students, here along with that, we have information about total resources in the system and also the free resources in the system. So if you look at the first one, we have 5 R1 type, 7 R2 type, and 5 R3 type resources. Apart from that, we have one R1 type, 0 R2 type, and one R3 type free resources. So actually this matrix, if you look at this free resources, it gives information about available resources for the processes. Okay, students, now the task is we have to detect whether there exists a deadlock in this particular example or not. Okay, for detecting the deadlock, what we do is first we analyze the allocated resources and the resources which are requested by the processes. What we'll do is we'll try to check whether any of the process will be able to complete its execution with available resources. Okay, if that process will complete its execution, once it completes its execution, the allocated resources which were allocated for a completed process, they will be added with free resources. And again, once the free resources are updated, we'll check once again whether any of the next process will be able to complete its execution by using available free resources. So if it is possible, once again, we'll assume that that next process is also able to complete its execution. Then we update every time the free number of resources. Then we take up again the next process and so on. So every time we'll check whether any of the process will be able to complete its execution by using available set of resources. If possible, we assume that that process will complete and we take up the next process and so on. We repeat this process, but anywhere, if one of the process will not be able to complete its execution, then we'll come to the conclusion that the particular process is in deadlock state. Okay, now we'll see how to solve this problem. The very first step is, students, we have to note down the initial state. So in the initial state, what I have done is simply I have copied the given problem itself. I have noted down the information about allocated resources and the requested resources. And also here I have noted down about the free resources which are available. Okay, students, now if you look at this information, can you think first which process will be able to complete its execution? Just think logically and tell me. Can you think which process will be able to complete its execution? We have P1, P2, P3, and P4. If you look at the requested resources, that is additional resources, what about P3? Process P3 does not require any resources. For that process P3, the allocated resources, they are enough to complete the execution. That's why what we can decide is the process P3 can complete its execution. Students, please try to understand. Now, as process P3 is allocated with 0, 1, 1, the resource allocation state of P3 is 0, 1, 1, and requested state is 0, 0, 0. That indicates that for process P3, the allocated resources, they are enough to complete its execution. That's why what we do is we assume that process P3 will complete its execution. Okay, now once process P3 will complete its execution, the resources which were allocated to P3 will be added to the list of free resources. Can you tell me what will happen when process P3 will complete its execution? What about the updation in the free resources? Can you tell me, students? So when P3 will complete, uh, R2 and R3 resources, they are released, right? They will be added with the available free resources. That's why what will happen is in the free resource table we get R2 equal to 2, and similarly we get R3 equal to we get R2 equal to 1, and we get R3 equal to 2 because P3 was allocated with 0 number of R1 resources. So R1 will not be updated, R1 will remain 1, but P3 it was allocated with one R2 type resource. That resource which is released by P3 will be added with this R2. 0 plus 1 we get 1. Next R3, P3, it was allocated with one R3 type resource that will be added with this existing one. That's why in the next state, the free resource information will be updated as 1, 1, 2. That I have written here. Just if you look at this status, here we have written after completing P3 and after allocation of resources to P4. Okay, students, first we assume that P3 has completed its execution. Once P3 completes its execution, the allocated resources for P3 will become 0, 0, 0. And the resources which were allocated for P3 that were added with the free resources. So after P3 completes its execution, these resource states will be updated as 1, 1, 2. The resources which were allocated to P3 will be added with existing resources. Okay. Now, if you look at these matrices, can you think which will be the next process that can be taken up for execution? So you have to check the available resources. You have to check this available resources and requested resources. Based on that, you will be able to decide which process can be taken up for execution, right? So now, just I'll come to this state. If you look at requested resources of P4, or if you just go on testing from P1 to P4 otherwise, if you check the requested resources of P1, it requires 213, which cannot be satisfied with 112, right? Then P2 requires 140. We cannot satisfy with again 112. But in case if you consider P4, its requirement is 102. This can be accomplished by using the updated free resources. The updated free resources are 1, 1, 2. This can satisfy the requirement of process P4 because it requires 1, 0, 2 number of resources. That's why here what I will decide is the process P4 can be taken for execution so that it will be able to complete its task. So now that's why here we assume that P4 can be taken for execution, and once we allocate the resources to the P4, the free resources will change again, right? Because for P4 the requirement was 102. So you subtract 102 from this matrix. 102. So 1 minus 1, 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. 2 minus 2 is 0. Now, after allocating resources to P4 process, the free resources can be updated as 0, 1, 0. I hope you are understanding this concept. Okay, next, after this, again we have to decide which process will be able to complete its execution. Okay, now what we assumed in the step B was P4 will complete its execution. Okay, once P4 will complete its execution, these 2 to 4 number of resources, they'll be added with existing resources, right? So 2 to 4, they will be added with this matrix, right? So that's why we get 0 plus 2, we get 2, 2 plus 1, we get 3, then 4 plus 0, we get 4. That's why after completion of P4, the free resource states will be 2, 3, 4. It indicates that we have two resources of R1 type, 3 resources of R2 type, and 4 resources of R3 type. They are available for any process. Okay. Okay, now with this situation, we'll check which process will be able to complete the execution. We have available resources state as 2, 3, 4. Now we are left with process P1 and P2. So for P1, if you look at the requirement is 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, right? 2, 1, 3. Then for P2, if you look at the requirement is 1, 4, 0. If you consider P1 and P2, out of these two, P2 cannot be taken for execution because its request is 140. It cannot be satisfied with the available resources as 2, 3, 4 because P2 requires 4 resources of R2 type. But right now in the system, we have only 3 resources of R2 type. That's why we cannot take up the process P2. But however, if you consider P1, P1 can be taken for execution because for P1, the resources required are 2, 1, 3. It requires 2 resources of R1 type, 1 resource of R2 type, and 3 resources of R3 type. That's why we can decide that P1 will be able to complete the execution. So now, if this is the status of available resources, once the resources are allocated to P1, this matrix can be updated as 0 to 1. How to get this matrix is from 2, 3, 4, from the available resources, we subtract the requested resources. Okay, so 2 minus 2, 0. It means that available 2 resources, they are allocated to P1. Then 3 minus 1, we get 2. It indicates that out of 3 resources of R2 type, 1 is allocated to P1. Next, again similarly, 4 minus 3, we get 1. So after allocating resources to P1, the free resources status will be 0 to 1. So now what we assumed is P1 will be able to complete its execution, right? So P3, P4 have completed. Now P1 is allocated with 2 plus 2, 4 resources. Earlier it was allocated with 2 resources. Now we have satisfied the resource request which is made by P1. That's why 2 plus 2, 4 we get. 1 plus 1 we get 2. Then 0 plus 3 we get 3. Now allocated resource matrix for P1 is updated as 4, 2, 3. So now the allocated resource matrix will be updated as, we assume that P1 has completed its execution, P3 has completed its execution, and similarly P4 has completed its execution. Now we are left with only process P2. So for P2, the requested resources are 1, 4, 0, right? Now only process left is P2, and once after completing P1, now we'll check available resource status, right? what we do is the resources which are allocated to P1 will be added with this matrix. So 0 plus 4, we get 4. 2 plus 2, we get 4. 1 plus 3, we get 4. The meaning is that P1 has completed its execution. The resources which were allocated to P1 will be added with free resources, right? That's why after completing process P1, the resource P resources state will be 4, 4, 4. So now if you look at the requirement of P2, it is 1, 4, 0. So with these available resources, we can satisfy the request made by process P2. 1, 4, 0. It can be easily satisfied. That's why suppose if you allocate resources to P2, then the free resources will be updated as 304. I hope you are understanding this manipulation, students. What we have done is the available resources were 4, 4, 4. From this, we subtract the resources which we allocate to P2. That is 4, 4, 4 minus 1, 4, 0. We get the result as 304. Then now all the processes they are now able to complete, right? Right now we can say that all the processes P1, P2, P3, P4, they have completed their execution, and none of the resource request is left out. So now in this situation, we can decide that none of the process will be in deadlock. None of the process will be in deadlock. Students, just I'll explain the concept. What we do is first we note down the allocated resources, requested resources, and initial set of free resources. With the available resources, we will check whether any of the process will be able to complete its execution. If so, we complete that process and we add up the resources which are released by that particular process with available resources. Okay. Then once again, we check for next process whether it is possible to satisfy the request made by the next process. If any of the process request can be satisfied with available resources, once again, we update the free resources, because after allocating resources to the next process, we have to subtract those allocated resources from available resources, right? So we update this free resources. And again, when that next process will complete its execution, the resources which are released by that next process will be added with free resources. So this free resource set will be updated every time. Once we subtract when the resources are allocated, and similarly when the resources are released, those released resources they will be added with free set of resources. So while analyzing like this, if all the processes will be able to complete their execution in the given set, we assume that no deadlock exists. Deadlock will not exist, we assume. But in case, if for any of the process finally will not be able to satisfy the request, if any of the process is left out, where we cannot satisfy the resource request condition, in that situation, we assume that that particular process is in deadlock state. I hope you are understanding this problem. Students, what you do is just you go through the video once again, you can understand. Okay. Now with this concept, I'll come to the deadlock detection algorithm. Okay, students, here we have the algorithmic steps for detecting the deadlock. Okay, if you have understood this basic concept, that is the example whatever we have discussed, then understanding algorithmic steps will be very easy. Okay, now if you look at this algorithm, first he has given the inputs to the algorithms, where He has given A as number of processes. The number of resource classes he has mentioned as R, right? Then he has given blocked as a set of processes running, again one more set of processes, and he will note down information about free resources in the array. Then he will maintain information about allocated resources and requested resources. So these all are fed as an input to the algorithm. Okay. Then apart from that, we use some data structure. Here we use data structure as finished. So again, finished is a set of processes. We have a set of processes. One is blocked, second one is running, and third one is finished. Okay, first we'll go to the step 1. We repeat until the running is empty. So as we discussed, running is set of the processes. We repeat this entire step 1 as long as the running set is not empty. So we'll assume that all the processes they are available in the running set. We select now one of the process, let it be pi from the set running. We will select one of the process pi which is feasible to complete its execution. Okay. Once that process is selected for execution, we delete that process from the running set and we add that process to finished. As you have seen in the example, there what we did is we assume that P3 will be able to complete its execution first. We'll take up that process and we delete it from running state and we'll add that process to finished state. Same thing here he has done in the step B. Then after that, once the process PI will complete its execution, the free resource table should be updated. The resources which were allocated to process PI should be added with free resources. That's why here we write free resources equal to free resources plus the resources which were allocated to the process PI. That step here we have written. Okay. Then after that, while set blocked contains a process PL such that, okay, we have finished process PI, then we check again blocked set of processes. That set we are going to check. There we find out whether any of the process will be able to complete its execution with available set of resources. So after completing process PI, we have updated the free resources. With this existing free resources, we check one of the process PL such that if its request is less than or equal to free resources, if we find any process whose requested resources are less than or equal to updated free resources, if that is the case, then what we assume is that again that process can be taken for execution. In that case, we assume that that process will complete its execution. But before that, we have to again update the free resources. Now you are allocating resources to process PL. When you allocate resources to PL, the free resources should be updated as free resources equal to free resources minus the requested resources by the process L. Here, when the resources are allocated, we carry out subtraction. When the resources are then after that, even the allocated resources of the process which is taken for execution should be updated. That's why here we have this step allocated resources equal to allocated resources plus requested resources. Then we delete that process PL which was in the blocked state and we add that process to running state. Then we repeat this process as long as the running set is not empty. Once the running set of processes is found empty, we decide that there exists no deadlock. But if any of the process will remain blocked after testing all these conditions, we'll come to conclusion that that particular process is in the blocked state. In the second step, he has written the same thing. If the set blocked is not empty, that is after carrying out this entire loop, if the set blocked is not empty, then we declare that the process in that blocked set is deadlocked. Students, this is all about deadlock detection algorithm. Please try to understand the concepts. Once you understand the concept, then easily you'll be able to reproduce the things. Okay, any doubts, students? But please go through the concepts.